So today's topic is antibody engineering. Okay, so we will understand what antibody engineering is and how we can engineer the antibodies for our routine use or for therapeutic applications. Okay, we will start with basics and then we will move advanced towards advanced techniques. So first of all, you know that what are antibodies, right? Antigen binding proteins. And you also know that their structural features. Okay, so I won't go through this. You know that they are dimers of heterodimers, how the heavy chain and light chains are arranged, and how the intermolecular disulfide bonds keep them together, right? All those things you know, and they can be found on the B cell membrane as well as in free form in blood. Okay, so the first of all, few things about the monoclonal antibodies or beginning of monoclonal era. Shortly, I'll explain you what monoclonal antibodies are. So, first of all, I will let you know that von Behring and Kitasato discovered antibodies. Okay, and it was Ehrlich, Paul Ehrlich, who proposed the side chain theory. Okay, side chain theory is like some cells expresses some molecules on their cell surfaces that captures the pathogens. Okay, that is nothing but the basics about the how the antibodies functions, right? And at the same time, about in 1955, Porter isolated fab fragment, fc fragment from rapid gamma globulin, that you already know, right? So let's move ahead. And it was Littlefield who developed a unique medium to isolate hybrid cells from two parent cell lines. It was known as hypoxanthine aminopterin thymidine medium. Okay, so it was Littlefield in 1964. And then in 1975, Kohler and Milstein provided the most outstanding proof of clonal selection theory by fusion of normal and malignant cells. Normal, and they devised hybridoma technology. Shortly, we will understand that also, and we will know what are the features of hat medium and how does it help in selecting the hybrid cells, okay, or hybridoma cells. As we will be studying designing expressing monoclonal antibodies or their variants or engineered antibodies, we should know a little bit about the history of monoclonal antibodies. The first monoclonal antibody that reached the market was muromonab. Okay, muromonab ct3. It was raised against the ct3 molecule, and it was a murine origin monoclonal antibody muromonab. Okay, it was produced by Milstein. This is the drug. It is that antibody muromonab. Okay, and in 1988, Greg Venter pioneered the technique to humanize the monoclonal antibody. What does humanize? What is a humanized monoclonal antibody? We will shortly see. Okay, and in the beginning of guys, it was Paul Ehrlich uh, at the beginning of 20th century who theorized that a cell under threat grew additional side chains. That is nothing but the side chain theory to bind the toxin, and these additional side chains broke off to become the antibodies. Today we know that there are membrane-bound antibodies, and then there are soluble forms of antibodies. They do not actually break off. They are transcribed in a manner that they are in two forms: membrane-bound and soluble form, right? So in 20th century, he said that side chain broke off to become the antibodies that are circulated throughout the body. It was these antibodies that Ehrlich first described as magic bullets in search of toxins. So the magic bullet term was used for the antibodies. Okay. So and in 2003, in 21st century only, first fully humanized monoclonal antibody was introduced in the market, and this was adalimumab. Okay, adalimumab. It was completely humanized. And this trio received Nobel. Journey, Kohler, and Milstein in 1984. They were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology in Medicine for theories concerning the specificity in development and control of immune system and the discovery of the principle for the production of monoclonal antibodies. Okay, so they give theories regarding the specificities in development and control of the immune system. Okay, and they basically provide the principle for production of monoclonal antibodies. This is about the timeline, how the how people are now able to engineer antibodies. Some pioneering discoveries are always there that works as the foundation to you know carry out advanced advanced research or advanced manipulation to the antibodies or anything. Starts with the some basics. Okay, so this is about, like, as we already saw, that in 1975 first monoclonal antibodies were produced, and then in 84 first chimeric monoclonal antibody was produced. You will know these terms shortly, that what is a chimeric antibody, what is a humanized antibody, monoclonal antibody, all those. And then very important discovery, development of phage display technology. Okay, important technology was developed, the development of, and the first FDA approved ap- approval of mouse monoclonal antibody generated with the hybridoma technology came. That is nothing but the Muromonab CT3. Okay, so phase display technology was one of the pioneering technology for development of monoclonal antibodies without the help of any animal model. Okay. Now in 1986, first humanized monoclonal antibody was produced through CDR grafting. Okay, this is another way of producing humanized antibody, that is CDR grafting. And in 1994, first fully human, not humanized, fully human monoclonal antibody was produced using phage display technology. Okay, and transgenic mice, as well as first FDA approval came for the chimeric antibody, that is epcizumab. Okay, epcizumab. Okay, and in 1997 FDA approval for humanized monoclonal antibody daclizumab came in, and in 2002 FDA approval for fully human antibodies produced by phage display technology was there. Adalimumab. Okay, it was the first human monoclonal antibody produced by phage display technology. Okay. Now, in 2006, first FDA approval to fully human antibody produced in transgenic mice system. Okay, so this is also a fully human antibody, but produced by a different technology. Okay, this is also the fully human monoclonal antibody, but produced using different technology, transgenic mouse system. Okay, so that way we are advancing through antibody monoclonal antibody production, and with the development of platforms that can be used to produce engineered antibodies. Okay, now we should understand what are monoclonal antibody and what are polyclonal antibodies. See, monoclonal antibodies are identical because they are produced by one type of immune cell, or clones of a parent cell. Okay, only a single cell is producing, or its clones are producing monoclonal antibody. Okay, and polyclonal antibodies are derived from different cell lines, more than one. Okay, there will be polyclonal. They so one clone or one cell or its clone produces a single type of antibody whose amino acid sequence is all same. But here different molecules will be having different amino acid sequence. Okay, for example, if we have an antigen that has epitopes 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and we immunize the mice with this particular antigen, okay, so the mouse will produce different antibodies. It will produce antibodies against antigen epitope 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Four types of antibodies will be produced for all those antigens, all those epitopes. So antibody 1 will be produced by one cell or its clones. Antibody 2 will be produced by another cell or its clones. Likewise, B and 3 will also be produced. So this whole preparation of the antibodies is polyclonal antibody. Definitely, because AB1 is binding to an epitope 1, its CDR or V region will differ as with that of 2, 3, and 4, because they are binding to different epitopes, right? So their V region will differ drastically, right, in terms of their amino acid sequence. Now, if we isolate the spleen cells and fuse these four cells which are producing these four antibodies and fuse them with myeloma cell, which are nothing but cancerous B cells that have infinite potential for divide, right? We hybridize these two types of cells: plasma cells, which has a finite lifetime; myeloma cell that are highly proliferative cancerous cells. And if we hybridize them and we produce hybridoma, hybrid cells, and we devise some mechanism to screen these hybridoma cells. So we do today we have that technique. We have the, which is nothing but a simple hat medium that allows the selection of these hybridomas. Okay, and then all these four clones are separated and clone and produced in different vials or different vessels, right? So these cells, this single cell is producing only one type of antibody. This single cell is producing only one type of antibody. So these antibody are monoclonal antibody. All the antibodies produced by this particular clone or hybridoma will be same. Likewise, we have four different hybridoma producing four types of monoclonal antibody, and pool of all these antibodies against single antigen are polyclonal antibody. They, right? So they have a different V region, all the four. But if we consider only one and its clones, it will be monoclonal. Okay. So this way you should understand what is a polyclonal and monoclonal antibody. Now some basics about the screening of hybridoma cells on het medium. Het medium is what? Hypoxanthine, aminopterin, and thymidine medium. Okay, it has in as its constituent hypoxanthine, aminopterin, and thymidine. Okay, now what is the significance of these three ingredients? Okay, what is the significance of these three ingredients in the het medium? So uh, this flow diagram will explain you the importance of all the three components of the het medium. Okay, you know that nucleotides are synthesized by either by de novo synthesis or salvage pathway, right? Now in salvage pathway, uh, yeah, this starts with the bases. It starts with the guanine, hypoxanthine, guanine, adenine, thymidine, or hypoxanthine. If we take hypoxanthine as a starting material, both guanylate and adenylate can be synthesized because inosine is the intermediate. Okay, inosinate can be converted to the guanylate or adenylate, right? So if you have hypoxanthine in medium, you can get guanylate and adenylate. Okay, but you cannot get thymidine out of hypoxanthine. You need to add thymidine for thymidine in the medium to produce thymidylate if salvage pathway is used. And in case of de novo synthesis, okay, there are several one carbon modifications we carried out with the help of tetrahydrofolate. Okay, so if you add antifolates, the de novo pathway will be blocked. Okay, and aminopterin is such an antifolate that inhibits the one carbon modifications during the de novo pathway. Okay. Likewise, from deoxyuridylate, the antifolate will inhibit the formation of thymidylate. Okay. So you have a de novo pathway that can be blocked by with the help of antifolates, and you have a salvage pathway for which you will have to provide the precursors. Okay. And now these precursors, even these conversion of these precursors require some enzymatic activity. For thymidine conversion to thymidylate, thymidine kinase is required, right? And conversion of hypoxanthine to inosinate, and HGPRT enzyme is required. Okay, so if you inhibit the thymidine kinase and HGPRT enzyme, then what will happen? The salvage pathway won't be possible, right? So the inhibitors, thymidine kinase, this enzyme can be, you know, uh, can be stopped. The thymidine kinase activity can be blocked by some molecules like bromodioxyuridine. If you add bromodioxyuridine, the thymidine kinase activity will be blocked. And the cells which are lacking this HGPRT, uh, uh, just a minute, guys. This HGPRT is sensitive to 6 thioguanine and 8 azaguanine. Okay, so this is sensitive to BRDU and this is sensitive to 6 thioguanidine and azaguanine. If you add these two compounds in the medium, BRDU, bromodioxyuridine, or thioguanine and 8 azaguanine, okay, so these two enzymes will be inhibited and salvage pathway won't be able. So you have tools to block either de novo pathway or the salvage pathway, right? If you add aminopterin, you will block the de novo pathway. If you add thymidine kinase, say this BRDU or 6TG or 8-azaguanine, you will block salvage pathway, right? Or if you don't provide the precursors, then also you won't be, the salvage pathway will not be possible. Okay, so this knowledge will explain that how the het medium is functioning. Okay, now the myeloma cells, the two types of cells are being taken to produce hybrid cells, hybridoma cells. Okay, myeloma cells and B cells, right? Antibody producing plasma cells. So why myeloma cells are being selected? Myeloma cells because these cells do not should not produce antibodies themselves, and they must contain the genetic marker, that is HGPRT trait. So they should be HGPRT positive. Okay, they should have this enzyme that will permit the easy selection of the resulting hybrid cells. What is being done for production of monoclonal antibodies? So first of all, we immunize the mouse with the adjuvants. Okay, and we can give the booster dose to have a potent immunological response. Okay, and then we isolate the B cells from these immunized mice. Okay, and uh, we cultivate the myeloma cells in the presence of BRDU and 6-TG. Okay, so we have GPRT positive myeloma cells. Now we allow the fusion of the plasma cells in the myeloma cells, okay, in vitro, and then we select the hybrid cells on het medium, okay. We select the hybrid cells on the het mediums, the cells that have the capacity to multiplication and also to produce the antibodies, okay. So this fusion can be carried out by n number of methods available, either through PAGs or electrofusion or with the help of Sendai virus. Okay, when we are selecting these hybrid cells, we serially dilute the preparation so that we can get the single cell isolated. Okay, and then we screen the suitable line that we need to produce monoclonal antibodies, or we screen the different cell lines for their capacity to producing antibodies that can bind specifically to the antigen of interest. Okay, then we select the hybrid and then we allow the multiplication in vitro multiplication, and then production of antibodies which can be harvested. Now this figure summarizes the selection process on the het medium. Say we have three types of cells when we allow the fusion. We have mortal splenic B cells, that is B cells, and we have myeloma cells, and we have hybrid cells, right? So on het medium, what will be their fate? On het medium, this B cells which we have taken are thymidine kinase positive, okay, and these are thymidine kinase negative cells, okay. So these thymidine kinase negative cells on het medium cannot carry out the salvage pathway because they are thymidine kinase negative. The enzyme that will form thymidylate is absent. So this salvage pathway won't be possible. And because we have added aminopterin in the medium, so the de novo pathway will also not be possible. So these het sensitive cells dies. Okay. So because both the pathways of nucleotide synthesis are not functional. While in case of more thymidine kinase positive cells, they also die, but they are capable of carrying out salvage pathway, but they die because they can they can divide for certain number of cycles only. Okay, so they are not immortal cells, they are mortal cells. They are destined to die after certain number of cell cycles, so they die because of that. And what about these hybrid cells? Why do they survive? Because because they are hybrids of Tk minus and Tk positive cells. So they have Tk positive phenotype, right? So they can carry out, because aminopterin is there, so they are not able to carry out de novo pathway, but they are able to use the salvage pathway and they survive. Okay, so that's how het medium helps in selection of hybridoma cells. Now, something about antibody engineering of monoclonal antibodies. See, so we have seen some certain terms like murine monoclonal antibody, chimeric monoclonal antibody, humanized monoclonal antibody, and also the completely human monoclonal antibody. Okay, so there are if you read a name of the monoclonal antibody, you can make a short guess that what is the origin of this antibody, and not what is the origin, but what kind of a monoclonal antibody it is. See, this muromonab is completely murine. So the O letter O will be there, uh, and you can recognize it that okay, this is of mouse origin, or this is a completely murine amino acid having monoclonal antibody. Now for chimeric, which are the having the human constant part and the murine variable region are will be having this word two letter XIZ. So that will indicate that it's a chimeric. So for example, rituximab. So Zmab will be rituximab is a chimeric of having the human constant region and the murine variable region, and then humanized. So humanized, Z and U for human, Z means ZED. You can remember like that. Okay, Zu means humanized. So almetuzumab, you can say see that Zumab. So this indicates the presence of these two letter indicates that it is a humanized, having the all of the antibody body from the human origin, but murine CDRs. But with the murine CDRs, you will it will be more clear once we see the figures. Now human, so only U will be there. Adalimumab, there is no Zmab, there is no Zumab, or there is no Mumonomab. Okay, nothing like that. So it's a human, completely, entirely human amino acids are being used for this kind of antibody. Now, if you are seeing the all the four types of antibodies on your screen, this is a mouse. Orange brown color is the mouse amino acids from originating from the mouse origin, and blue ones are from human. So a mouse antibody with a constant region as well as variable region is entirely from the mouse. Now here, when constant region is of mouse origin and the variable region is of chimeric human origin, it's a chimeric one. Okay, and then only CDRs are of mouse origin and rest of the antibody is of human origin, then it's a humanized. So we are progressing towards more having more and more human like amino acid sequence on the antibody molecule. Now this is a completely human antibody with human amino acid sequence for the antibody. Now in vitro antibody library, we will see that how the libraries are used for production of these kind of antibodies. Okay. Now what is the percentage of the human sequence in in these four types of antibodies? Okay, OMAB, ZMAB, ZUMAB, and UMAB. The suffixes you know that you know now. Completely murine, no human sequence. 65% of the ZMAB chimeric is human. 90% is the inhumanized, and 100% in fully human. Okay, now why are we interested in generating fully human monoclonal antibodies? Because for therapeutic purposes, when we use murine origin or chimeric monoclonal antibodies, there is immunogenicity, higher immunogenicity against these two types of molecules, while completely human no or very low immune reaction. Okay, so that's why we are interested that while we if we use these for therapeutic purposes, then there should be no reaction, immunological reaction towards the drug. Okay, mostly monoclonal antibodies are used as drugs to treat either many kinds of ailments like autoimmune disorders is one of them. Okay, so this is a short. So this is the summary of murine, chimeric, humanized, and human monoclonal antibody. Uh, I'll just read that. Murine derived from mice. These proteins are purified after immunization with antigen. Major problem associated with murine antibodies is include that reduced stimulation of cytotoxicity and the formation of complexes after repeated administration. What does this mean? Actually, see, antibody. antibody carry out its function with the help of the V region and C region, right? You know that C region helps in binding to the complement, right? And it binds to the FCR on different types of cells. And so the FC region of the mouse origin will not be able to carry out its function, which are possible by the human constant region in the human system. Okay, so they they show the reduced stimulation of cytotoxicity, and they also form the complexes after repeated administration. If you repeat the administration, they may form complex, and they may result in the allergenic reaction or even sometimes anaphylactic shock. So that's why these are the drawbacks of using monoclonal antibody, that there can be allergic reactions to these, and they can be complex immune complex formation, and also they do not carry out the FC regions function more effectively as compared to the human monoclonal antibodies. Now chimeric. Now, chimeric antibodies are composed of murine variable, as you know already. Now, human gene sequences taken from kappa light chain and the Ig1 heavy chain results in antibodies that are approximately 65% human. Okay, so what is being done here? Constant region domains are taken, and that results in about 65% of human type of amino acids. So this help in reduction of the immunogenicity and also increases the serum half-life. Okay, so more the human sequence, more the retention or less clearance from the system at the or at a lower rate. Now humanized antibodies are produced by grafting the hypervariable region on the amino acid domain into the human antibody. So we take only the hypervariable region or CDRs from the mouse origin, and then we graft it on the antibodies. It happens all on the genetic level. Okay, so this results in the 95% of human origin that we already know. Now human monoclonal antibodies are produced by transferring the whole rearranged human immunoglobulin genes from the naive cells in the murine genome. Okay, so we, and in a way, although in chimeric and humanized we are producing chimeric transgenic mouses only, but here we are transferring whole of the gene in the murine genome, before which we have knocked out the mouse counterpart, and then we vaccinate the mice to get desired antibody against the particular antigen. So that way we produce human monoclonal antibodies. So what do we do? There are two ways. There are two ways to produce fully humanized antibodies. One way we just discussed, that a mouse Ig locus is replaced by the human Ig locus. So there won't be any mouse Ig locus, but the regulatory sequences and promoters and other things are of mouse origin only. Then we immunize the mice, and whatever antibodies will be produced of human origin. So this way we can purify the human origin monoclonal antibodies for particular antigen. Now what happens in another technique, that is the phage display technique. This is a very important technique to produce antibodies without the use of mouse model. So what happens, different types of phages can be used to express antibody molecules on their as their surface proteins. Okay, mostly in M13, if you know the phage, M13 has outer coat and inner coat. So the coat tail protein P3 and P7 mostly are used. They are fused with the antibody rearranged antibody genes, and then a library is prepared, and then whole library is screened, because different types of antibodies will be produced by the different phages. So the whole library is screened for presence of checking the presence of the antibody with the desired specificity against a particular antigen. Okay, this process is done by panning. Panning, you know that we immobilize the antigen on a surface, and then we uh, uh, allow the binding of the phage on that surface, and then we wash off the unbound, and then we take the phages that are actually interacting with the antigen, and then we repeat the circle. We repeat this. Panning and selection screening, panning, screening, amplification, like that. Okay, so here you can see it more clearly that we isolate human B cells, and we take we PCR amplify. See, these are the antibody producing B cells. We PCR amplify uh, the variable regions, and variable region of heavy and light chain. We transform the bacteria. See, this example is only for the SCFV type. Okay, whole antibody gene can be PCR amplified, and can be transfected in the bacteria, and then the phage infection is carried out, and complete uh, complete set of phages. Okay, and or phage library is get expresses the different genes, or BCR genes, and that too as a fusion protein on the surface, on at their surface. Now then thereafter the panning is carried out, where the antigen is bound on onto the surface in a column, and then these phages are passed through. So only the washing. So see, then thereafter washing is done. So whatever phages are not, whichever phage is not binding will get washed away, and then further elution will be carried out. Only the phages that bind tightly with the antigen will come in the elution. But this process will be repeated, so ultimately we will be able to get the phage, only the phage that is having the V region or SCFV region, single chain of variable region, capable of binding to the antigens. Okay, so these eluted uh, antigens are amplified. These eluted phages are amplified in the bacteria. Okay, and further they are tested for their specificity towards the antigen. Okay, now once we have selected the phage, we can take out the Ig gene that is, getting that has got inserted in the phage genome, and then we take out the gene and transfect the mammalian cell, and then these mammalian cells, which are capable of producing these antibodies, are bulk bulk proliferation in vitro cultivation is being carried out, and you have the pure monoclonal antibody, okay, with SC and with SCFV region. So that way the whole phage display technology, ranging from the human antibody library generation, and then selection of the library for their binding specificity, and isolation of the gene for that particular, making the particular, for expressing that particular antibody is transfected in the mammalian cell, further to achieve purification and preparation of the monoclonal antibody. Now, transgenic mice technology. There is a mouse strain, the Triene mouse strain. That is the part of the part of the gene that codes for antibody variable domain are replaced with the human sequences. Okay, but the regulatory sequences are the same as, so that they will be turned on and off as per the signal in the mouse. Okay, so antibody are optimized for function in most of the mouse, yet they express the complete human repertoire. So you have human genome, human gene, human antibody, antibody gene in mouse. So once you give the antigenic challenge, they are able to produce the human antibody. Okay. So we can produce both humanized and human monoclonal antibody in mouse through transgenic mouse technology. So you need to prepare transgenic mice, right, to do that. Now, bispecific antibodies. See, these are the hybrids. These are the hybrids of two different antibody molecules which can be constructed by chemically cross-linking the two different antibodies. Okay, or by synthesizing them in hybridoma consisting of two different monoclonal antibody producing cell lines that have been fused. You should know what a chimeric immunotoxin is. Okay, chimeric molecule having a toxin molecule attached to the most through C constant region only is replaced with the toxin. Okay, by the chemical binding, the toxin has been attached to the immunoglobulin Ig gene. Okay, protein. Now heteroconjugates. This is also bispecific and heteroconjugate. Hetero means two, different. Okay, half of the mouse antibody molecule is so both the halves have different specificities. As I told you, this half has specificity for anti-tumor antibody, anti-tumor tumor antigen, and this has for T cell receptor. So this will engage with the T cell receptor, and this will engage with the tumor, right? So this will facilitate the bringing the T cells close in the close vicinity of the tumor cells for carrying out the killing of the tumor cell. Now you are seeing here different examples of bispecific antibodies where you are having the two chains, right? Here is the V region of the light chain. This is the V region of the heavy chain. Okay, connected with the V region of the heavy chain and the V region of the light chain. So actually, if you see this molecule, you are seeing this region and this region. So these two regions are in the both the V regions are fused, as well as both these two are then connected with each other with a bond. Okay, so this is a single SCFV, single chain fragment variable region. Okay, so this is the SCFV. So here two SCFVs are joined. Okay, now here you are seeing the DB. What is a DB? I asked you to read the article. What is the DB? Guys, tell me what is a DB? Hmm.
एक्चुअल टर्मिनोलॉजी याद नहीं आ रहा अभी.
Here you are seeing a dye body, right? Dye body, if you see it clearly, again, only the how the domains, immunoglobulin domains are connected with each other are different. This is a single chain, okay, and this is a single chain. These are two chains that brings the variable region of light and heavy chain together. Okay, here these two region are connected, right? Tandem in a tandem SCFA. But in a dye body, actually you have two antigen binding site here also. But how are they connected? Variable region of heavy chain 1 and variable region of light chain 2 are connected. So the way they are connected is different. Now single chain dye body, if you open this up, if you open this up because of this bonding, it's a single chain actually. VH1, VL2, VH2, VL2 like that. If you open it up, you see it as a VH1, VL2, VH2, and VL1. Okay, in all the cases, there are two antigen binding sites. Here also antigen binding, antigen binding, antigen binding, antigen binding, like that. So that is maintained. Now, what about this dual affinity retargeting? Dual affinity retargeting. Now here you see that the binding pattern is different. Now two V light chain regions are bonded together. So there is a change in the intra interdomain binding. What about tandem antibody? Now here you see two these having two, like, see, you have in an antibody you have two antigen binding site, right? So this if you see only this region, it has two antigen binding sites, right? And if you see this region, it also has the two antigen binding sites. So this region enable the function of an antibody, this region enable the function of an antibody, so tandem antibody. Okay, now this is also a bispecific IgG, but it has certain modification in the CH region, so that there is a knob and hole like structure, so that fits into each other. Now here some small proteins are small binding proteins are attached to the light chains constant region. So it might be having some affinity to particular target, leading to the binding of the antibody to the site. Okay, so here phenomers are being attached to the constant region of the antibody molecule. Now antibody drug conjugates. See, through a chemical linker, a drug can be conjugated to the antibody molecule. Okay, you know that antibody Fc region binds to Fc receptor, and the whole antibody can be internalized through endocytosis in a way similar to the receptor mediated endocytosis, right? So they can be the drug or the toxin molecule can be attached to the antibody with a cleavable or non-cleavable linker. Okay, say disulfide linker, cleavable linker, or thioether non-cleavable linker, or even digestible linkers. Okay, maybe some enzymatic digestion will occur, and the linker will be broke off. That all those kind of linkers are possible, non-cleavable, cleavable, or digestible. Okay, so once the antibody is internalized in the cell, it can release this toxin, which can kill the target cell. Say you have targeted the antibody uh, to the cancerous cell, and you have tethered this anti-cancer drug with the linker to the antigen, to the antibody. Okay, so this antibody drug conjugate will facilitate the killing of the cancer cell and result in the rapid cell death, and that too very specific manner, because the antibodies are specific for the cancer specific markers. Okay, so that way these antibody drug conjugates are very important.
Excuse me,
Now,
ma'am.
so immunocytokines and cytokine complexes. See, many cytokines can be complexed with the antibodies, like IL-2. Okay, and complexing the IL-2 with different engineered anti-IL-2 antibodies and injecting these complexes into mice leads to the expansion of a subset of T cell. Okay, so as we have studied in autoimmune disorders, you see IL-2 is responsible for skewing the T cell balance towards the Treg cells and alleviating the pathogen uh, uh, disease symptoms. Okay, so that way we can use these antibodies as a vehicles to deliver the cytokines or anti or or suppressing the cytokine effect. In both way we can use these cytokine immune complexes. Okay, now we have different examples where many molecules have been uh, complex with the antibodies to treat particular disease. Okay, so I will request you to go through the this it's a very big list, and what are the you know what are the uses of these products or drugs. I will request you to go through and read and appreciate. Okay, now Julie asked me one question, that how the cathepsin what is the cathepsin cleavable linker and how it helps in generation of ADC. Okay,
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes, how it helps in generation of the ADC. So this is what a cathepsin linked linker and drug will look like. See, cathepsin is a intercellular enzyme. Okay, and during lysosomal degradation of endocytosed materials, this cathepsin, which is nothing but a protease, this cath and the is capable of cleaving the peptide linker. So cathepsin cleavable linker will be a peptide linker through which the drug is tethered to the antibody molecule. So when the uh, drug along with the with the cathepsin cleavable linker enters with the help of, see, this is the target site which needs okay, and there is a specific antigens towards which this antibody is raised, right? So this antibody will bind and then get internalized in the cell, and this cathepsin, because it's a lysosomal enzyme, it will degrade the linker and the drug will be released and it will cause the cell death. Okay, so that way this antibody dependent cytotoxicity will be carried out or facilitated. In our autoimmune disorders, the significance of T regulatory cells is much higher than other pro-inflammatory. This is a suppressing cells for other T cells and B cells. So this is important. So mostly skewing the balance towards the T regulatory cell is the main goal. So that's why mainly this is under the focus.